Hey, Lit Fam, just dropping in real quick before this epic episode with Lisa and Tom Bilyeu kicks off. Now, let me rewind a bit. Now, this was filmed back in early March, right after I battled through both COVID and the flu simultaneously. Man, let me tell you, your boy was down bad. My voice was shot, and I couldn't shake that lingering cough. But nothing was gonna stop me from heading to LA to chat with them in their stunning home. Now, I've been hyped about this episode ever since Lisa interviewed me last November. Did you catch that episode on Women of Impact? It's powerful. There was something about her energy that inspired me to turn the tables and interview her and Tom. They're such a captivating couple. And the fact that they built a $1 billion company together and still maintain a thriving relationship blows my mind. Lisa, she's like a long lost sister. That's my girl. And Tom's just a total genius. Seriously, this interview is packed with so many gems we could open up our own jewelry store. So get your notebooks ready. There's a wealth of wisdom coming your way.
He has to have like really nice style. He has to have a really nice car, because I was brought up thinking and being taught that those materialistic things meant they could take care of you. Being Greek Orthodox, that's how I was brought up, that a guy that has wealth is a sign that they can take care of you. So I'm a 21-year-old, I don't know better, so I'm thinking that this is everything that I want in a relationship. And then I go on a date with him, and he picks me up, and he's just come back from work, so he's all sweaty. He's got his like clothes that he's worn all day, and he didn't seem to be bothered. Like, he just was so happy to go on the date. We go to his car, and he's got this really, really old man Buick car, and the back seat was like chock full of just like junk. And again, I was used to dating guys with the rims and the stereos and the rate, right? Like, that's what so I'm looking at the car going, okay, judgment, judgment, judgment. And then he opens the car door for me. It was the first time any guy had been chivalrous.
Oh, gosh.
And in that moment, I was like, screw the car. He just opened the car door for me.
Every second that escapes without you here with me keeps my heart anticipating till I finally see you.
When I made my vows, I told God that I was going to take care of this gift.
All my life I've been waiting for you. Girl, you know I've been praying for you. Been writing these love letters to you.
So I fight for that future in the present. You know what I'm saying?
That was good, Ken.
Congratulations to the ones who found love, for the hope and new beginnings from heaven above. I await my future wifey. I pray that it won't be too long, too long. Every second that it...
Welcome to the Dear Future Wifey Podcast. I'm your host, Latera Star Whitfield. Listen, are you still shacking up with us? If you're still shacking up with us, come on, can we get a commitment? Hit that subscription button and subscribe. Make sure you turn on your notification bell so you'll be notified about upcoming episodes. And while you're at it, just go ahead and like this video right now. I guarantee you're gonna love it. And if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please leave a review. Listen, today's episode is gonna be absolutely amazing. You know, I've been talking to y'all over the last couple of seasons about bringing more diversity on the podcast. So we're gonna jump off with this amazing couple. I met this couple a couple of months ago, and I was so fascinated by, I always say you can tell the way a man is loving his wife by the countenance on her face. And so when I met this queen, I was like, I gotta meet your husband. So without further ado, welcome to the Dear Future Wifey Podcast. My homies, Lisa and Tom Bilyeu. How y'all doing? Good.
I'm honored to be on your show.
Man, listen, Women of Impact, it was amazing. I read the comments from people, and they seem to have enjoyed it. So thank you so much for having me on the podcast. And like I told you then, when I first heard about your podcast, I was like, I would love to be on there one day, but I didn't quite see how I would fit in. And so I'm glad that you found space for me to come on your podcast. Impact Theory, y'all doing the doggone thing. I hope I can get to 4 million subscribers one day like you got over there, Tom.
I have no doubt.
When you were building this, did you know, what made you get into the podcasting space?
Ooh. Okay, so here's the real answer, sexy or not. I know that I have a magic trick, that I am highly verbal and that I would be able to, because when I started, I was just a protein bar guy. Nobody knew who I was in the space. I could see that the media landscape game was changing and that I needed to take advantage of that. And I knew in the then new format of YouTube podcasts, which were pretty unheard of when we started, that there was an opportunity for me to build a real audience. And so started doing my magic trick, and it grew very quickly. We were able to get guests that we shouldn't have been able to get, basically, that we were punching well above our weight, and just started to do really well. And that was it, just understanding that to change people's perception of me, I needed a platform where I could engage in all new ideas, and the YouTube podcast was the perfect format.
So when you said change people's perception of you, what was the perception? Like you said, just the nutrition guy or energy bar guy, whatnot, but what other things that gave you more of a voice to create a platform by way of a podcast?
The advice I was given was not to do it. By some pretty big names. People were like, look, it's already played out. The landscape of podcasts is established. It's going to be who it's going to be, and it's just too late. They were telling me that it was already played out, but I knew that by doing a high caliber show of TV quality, I mean, in the beginning we filmed in front of a live studio audience and everything, like the whole nine. Yeah, it was a whole different thing. That we could do something special. And again, the great irony of the brand that we built is if I told you how we did it now, you'd be like, obviously. But back then it was crazy. So we were doing content, we were dealing with influencers. Nobody had been doing it as a brand. We were shooting our own content, doing what they now call UGC, so user-generated content. It was all of it was just like, this doesn't make any sense. Why are you guys doing this? And same thing with the podcast was, I would put in 12 hours of research for a single episode. And so people were like, that was such a new way to do it. Now, of course, everybody's on YouTube. Everybody puts 12 hours of research for a single episode. So things
I don't think everybody does 12 hours.
Well, okay, maybe not.
Okay.
But it now, in the beginning, people would call it out. Like, oh, wow, it's so weird the way he, like, look how much he prepares for an episode.
Yeah.
Now, that's a genre of podcast.
Yeah.
And so I will say that we really planted the flag with that. We were, if not the first, we were one of the earliest for sure.
I decided to name this episode Empire of Love. Because one of the things that I admire so much about y'all is that y'all built this empire, but the foundation of it is love. And the reason why I say that is because when I met Lisa, the way she speaks so highly of you and the way she speaks about how y'all have cultivated this relationship based on truth, honesty, transparency, vulnerability. And a lot of people forget that when they're building a relationship. And so that's what makes you guys able to thrive, not only in marriage, but also in your business. She shared with me a comment that people say, you know, hey, Lisa, you're with him because of his money. And she's like, hey, when I met him, when I first got with him, he didn't have it like that. You know what I'm saying? He had debt, he had all this. So let's unpack that. How long ago, I know y'all been married for 21 years, but how did y'all meet?
So it was 23 years ago. I was in film school, and my friend handed me a brochure for a film school, like for 8 weeks in Los Angeles. And it was called the New York Film Academy. You get to work on the back lots of Universal Studios. You get to go to their props department. I was like, this feels like a dream come true. So it's for 8 weeks. So I come to America, I walk into the school, and the first person I see is my teacher, my hubby.
He was your teacher?
He was my teacher.
Now, teacher.
Yeah, in another era, we are a Me Too story. But,
no, hilarious.
Yeah, so I thought it was going to be a summer fling, and this is the most beautiful part, I think, of it, is when you don't have expectations or you don't go into a date thinking that this could be their future, right? Obviously, you're showing my future wifey. I didn't go in thinking he's going to be my future husband, so I had zero expectations. I knew I was going to leave the country, and so I thought this is going to be a great story that I'm going to tell my grandkids when I'm 90 years old, that I had this hot fling with this American dude. And on his side, he was thinking...
Yeah, that she is legally obligated to leave the country. And so I was like,
Because
this
of my
is
visa.
perfect. Like there is even
Legally
if,
obligated. And where were you going back to?
Back to England.
Yes.
So I had a visa for like 8 weeks. And so he knew, oh, well, she has to leave. And he had just got out of a relationship where the woman was very clingy. And so he was like, well, this is great. Even if she gets clingy, she has to legally leave. And I'm like, this is great. He's a hot American dude. And so that first date to me was the most electrifying date I've ever been on, because I didn't have any expectations.
Good.
I didn't go in there thinking he was going to be somebody that I was going to, connect with in the future. And so it left open a space for us to discuss things that I'd never spoken about on dates that I'd been on. Let's say I'd been with somebody for 3 months.
Yeah.
We were having discussions on that first date. And he was so open and so, you know how when you date, you kind of have a check box, right? Like, they need to be this, they have to be this, they've got to like this music, blah, blah, blah. I had to check box. He met none of those check boxes, except for I was extremely attracted to him. So the rest of the check boxes were, he has to have like really nice style, he has to have a really nice car, because I was brought up thinking and being taught that those materialistic things meant they could take care of you. Being Greek Orthodox, that's how I was brought up, that a guy that has wealth is a sign that they can take care of you. So I'm a 21-year-old, I don't know better, so I'm thinking that this is everything that I want in a relationship. And then I go on a date with him, and he picks me up, and he's just come back from work, so he's all sweaty. He's got his clothes that he's worn all day, and he didn't seem to be bothered. Like, he just was so happy to go on the date. We go to his car, and he's got this really, really old man Buick car, and the back seat was chock full of just junk. And again, I was used to dating guys with the rims and the stereos and the rate, right? That's what so I'm looking at the car going, okay, judgment. And then he opens the car door for me. It was the first time any guy had been chivalrous.
Oh, gosh.
And in that moment, I was like, screw the car. He just opened the car door for me. And it was those moments of the things that I didn't realize that meant a lot to me, the things that I didn't realize that I valued, because I had actually convinced myself growing up that it didn't exist. So you lower the bar, and so now you don't expect somebody to do anything. So when he opens a door for me, I was in awe. We then go to the restaurant. I'm expecting a beautiful restaurant, the terrace. I'm expecting, with the napkins and all the... He pulls into a strip mall with a Chinese restaurant that had a B rating. And so I don't know if people know what B ratings are. It's like one step away from cockroaches and being shut down. And so we go in, and there's rips in the seat. There's a laminated menu. And I'm again, just not used to that. I was used to being treated in a different way.
Yeah.
And then he asks me, why do you believe in God? Oh, do you watch porn? And it wasn't him trying to put me in a spot.
Those weren't my first two questions.
No, they weren't. But look,
so by the way.
But we went on, so let's say the dinner was 2-3 hours.
Yeah, we covered a lot of territory.
Yes. But nobody had ever brought up those questions on a first date before, because everyone's trying to put on a show.
Yeah.
He wasn't trying to put on any show. He was just curious.
Let me ask you this. Why weren't you putting on the show? How did you date in the past?
Yeah, the honest answer is it doesn't get you laid. So I am the guy, when I was young, I would show up with flowers, custom written poetry. This is a true story. Do you know the story of Cyrano de Bergerac?
No.
Okay, it's a famous old book, play, whatever, about this guy who has a gigantic nose. And so he can't get people to fall in love with him, but he's a poet, and he's really good with words. And so this really good-looking guy who's kind of dumb is going after the guy that Cyrano secretly, or the woman that Cyrano secretly loves. And so Cyrano helps the good-looking guy get the girl, but he could never get the girl himself.
Using his words.
Yeah, I once hid in the bushes to help my friend woo a girl that I liked. So I was just beyond bad at relationships, beyond bad. And so I would, again, show up with flowers and poetry and just get nowhere. And so I was legitimately confused. And so I meet this guy, ironic, he was Greek. So I basically knew 2 Greek people my entire life. One who taught me how to be good with women, and then the next one I married. And he was like, oh, you have to be an asshole. And I was like, come on. I'm like, that one, I know him, and he isn't an asshole. So I'm like, he's using that word, but he means something else.
Yeah.
So what does he actually mean? And so I was like, what he's like is he's completely himself, and he has no fear of loss.
Ooh.
So he doesn't pursue a woman like, oh, I hope she likes me, which is what I would do. Like, oh, I want to wow you. I want to be so over the top that you're like, oh, I've never met anybody like this. Versus being aggressively myself, being a filtering mechanism, which then subconsciously communicates, I'm confident in who I am. So you're not going to knock me off course. I know who I am. I know what I'm after. And so I said, okay, cool. If that's the game, then I'm going to play to win. Good. And so it is hysterical to me how from, let's say, Monday, I cannot be successful with women. Learn that lesson Monday night. Tuesday morning, nobody has 100% success rate, but I go from 0 to like 40%.
Really?
It was
the mind shift.
Unreal. So I was actually laughing. I'm like, I cannot believe this works this predictably. And the good news is the thing that works was just be myself.
Yes.
Have absolutely no fear of loss. Now, it works because I am a wildly curious person. And because of that, there are a lot of things that I'm interested in that I can ask you about. And I'm not trying to judge you, I'm trying to understand you. And so I can ask a question, why do you believe in God? Not with an undercurrent of, you shouldn't. Just like, hey, I'm super curious. And then I'm not afraid to say, I don't. And here are my reasons why. But I'm open, like if you can convince me, like I'm here for it.
Yeah.
So that, like, if you want to be interesting, be interested, right? Like we've all heard that before.
Yep.
And so that became, my thing was, one, I legitimately want to know about you. And then two, when you ask me about me, like you're going to get good answers. I've thought about a lot of things. I have educated myself far beyond my schooling. I know how to explain it. I'm highly verbal. I'm emotionally attentive. So it's like when you can play the dynamic of I'm confident, I can create a frame where I can like tease the sexual energy so that it's there. We both know this is not a friend zone moment.
Yeah.
But I'm super respectful about not crossing the line or being inappropriate. And when you can create that environment, it's super
Tom,
effective.
are you? What's your IQ? Like you're a genius.
I have no. That I can assure you. Boy, do I wish.
But it seems
no.
like you have to score high because your thought process, like even by the way that you word it, how you can, from the sexual energy standpoint to say, I'm gonna let you know you're not gonna friend zone me. I'm gonna let you know that I'm not looking at you like my little sister.
But remember, the day before, not literally, but very recent, I was making catastrophic errors and couldn't find my way out. So I was literally just saying to some of the team here the other day, and they were talking about my magic trick, right? My magic trick is just thinking from first principles. And they were saying, you make it sound like we could do it too.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you can do it too. So literally, just in a super fast nutshell, the thing people confuse for intelligence is I use a system of thinking that I call the physics of progress. So you are just trying to figure out what the person is saying. Now, because I am completely willing to look stupid, I will just keep asking you questions until I can state your position back to you in a way that you will recognize. And so I try to get people to say the phrase, you understand my position perfectly. Cool. Now that I understand your position, maybe I disagree and then we can talk about it, but you're not going to waste time saying you don't understand what I'm saying. You just said, I understand your position perfectly. So
I love that.
But I will sometimes have to spend an hour building, I still don't understand. The number of times that the percentage of my life that I spend feeling like I am one of the dumbest humans alive, it's got to be over 50%.
But I think that's your superpower that pushes you to learn,
Yeah.
to not settle for where you are.
I'm just saying it is something anyone can do. Internally, I do not have a mental map of being bright. I am so often embarrassing myself that I'm just like, I'm not afraid to look stupid. I'm relentless. And I have a framework that allows me to anchor, where I'm like, I just need to keep asking questions. Here's the thing that I do that it's the only part of this that I don't know if I can teach, that maybe this is something special about me, but I don't think it serves people to think of it that way. But here's what it is. When you're explaining something to me and I don't understand, I know where I don't understand. So I can identify, hold on, what you just said there I don't get. Maybe I don't understand the word you used. Maybe, because the way to test whether you understand something is anything somebody tells you makes a prediction. And so if you can go, okay, then now I understand what prediction that makes, and so I will ask them, if what you just said is true, and I understand it correctly, it makes this prediction. Is that prediction accurate? And they'll go, no. And then I'm like, okay, one of two things is true. I don't understand you, or, ready for it?
Yep.
You don't understand yourself.
Exactly.
And so the number of times that it's me is abundant. The number of times that it's the other person is abundant.
Yeah.
And so that's where, if I could just get people to understand, don't rush to assume it's them. First, see if you're the one that's misunderstanding something.
Good.
And then identify the predictions, get to the point where they're like, yes, that prediction is true. Then the odds are that you understand it. Now, there are going to be times where you're like, I know what your base assumptions are, which this is going to fractal very fast. I know what your base assumptions are. Every word out of somebody's mouth is based on one of two things. A base assumption, something they believe to be true about the world. It's often invisible to them, but they believe it and they may not even know it.
Yeah.
Or a value. The value is the thing, the way they believe the world ought to be. Now, again, they may not understand they have that value. But if you know every word out of the person's mouth is one of those two things, now I'm just trying to track back to, what are your base assumptions? What's your value set? And then the magic trick is I'm not afraid to say, this is what you're building off of the following base assumption. And sometimes they're like, no, you don't understand. And I'm like, oh God, I have to start over and like work my way back. But once you can do that, it really is first principle thinking.
Now imagine when we argue.
That's what I was about to say. It's probably like 12-hour conversations. Because it's like...
It can be, but sometimes you get to, here's what we've learned. Speak in insecurities. Because that's the base assumption.
That's beautiful. Hold on. You said speak in insecurities.
Yes. Because they're reacting to something. And so I'm just going, okay, something has to be true for you to be reacting this way. So if somebody gives you a big emotional reaction, it's like, okay, the stakes are high for you, but I may not understand why. So now I'm like, okay, stakes are high because you're giving me a big emotional reaction. I've triggered you in some way, but I don't understand how or why. So now I'm just going to try to drill down into what that is. I'm not going to be judgmental. I'm not going to try to convince you, because if I don't understand you, trying to convince you is a losing proposition.
Yep.
So now I'm just like, okay, I just want to understand. And so for years, we just fought. We would yell and scream. And then one day the fight got so big and so stupid that I just said to myself, because it was over a cup of tea.
A cup of tea.
It was a cup of tea for real.
Yeah. So I was like, there's no way this argument is about a cup of tea. We are arguing about something.
Something else, but the tea is just a...
But neither of us understood what we were actually arguing about.
Yeah.
So we're actually yelling and screaming about the tea. And this is why I say I'm not a genius. Because it took so much yelling and screaming for me to go, there's no way I'm this mad about a cup of tea. So I'm like, what am I mad about? And so finally we got into it and I realized, I'm just going to admit something to you. I'm really insecure about this thing. And that thing, for anybody who cares, I made my wife poor. So when we got married, she had to clip coupons. We had to watch every dollar. She said we were in debt, like not a good situation.
My dad said no to you to marrying me because he didn't think that he could support me.
And he was right in the beginning. So this is all nested inside of a massive amount of anxiety that the poverty I have welcomed you into is not temporary, it's permanent. So the cup of tea, I won't go into the whole story, but the cup of tea ends up being, I'm getting emotionally triggered because her taking the time to drink the tea is triggering all my fears about this, that I'm not going to be able to take care of you well. But I wasn't aware of it. I just knew what she's doing makes me feel a certain way. And here's, you want to know my base assumption about life.
Come on.
People should not trust their emotions.
Yeah.
Now I can give you the biological reason why, but you should not trust your emotions.
No, I want you to get a biological reason why.
Okay, so let's assume God is real.
Because that's another question. I understand why you don't believe God is real based upon the way that you think and process information.
But it doesn't matter for this thing.
Right.
So let's just assume, so I don't lose some of your audience, let's just assume God is real. For whatever reason, God has decided to use evolution to create this wonderful creature. Okay, so now we have to ask, what are the realities of evolution? And the realities of evolution are that we have these algorithms running in our brain that are designed for one thing and one thing only. Literally one thing and one thing only. And that is to make sure you survive long enough to have kids that have kids. And so everything you've ever wanted to know about your life, your relationships, why you're ambitious, not ambitious, all of it, it's all wrapped up in that one simple equation. And so you have these algorithms running in your mind that are going to make sure that you stay alive long enough to have kids that have kids. But if in the moment you're trying to have a positive relationship with your wife and the evolutionary mechanisms are not aligned to make sure that you have a good relationship with your wife, you will notice I did not say that, that all of a sudden you go, oh, okay, my emotions are designed to keep me alive long enough to have kids that have kids. But that's not what I'm trying to do in this moment.
Right.
So when I say don't trust your emotions, I mean don't trust them to lead you to your goal.
Yeah.
And so if you are steering by what moves me towards my goal, and your goals are what I call honorable, then cool. I'm going to ignore my emotion or at least be very skeptical of it. So you did a thing, drink a cup of tea, it has made me mad. At that point in our relationship, I just trusted that I feel mad, I have a right to be mad, I should be mad, I act mad.
Yeah.
And now it creates this entire downward spiral. So through that argument, which ends up being this really pivotal moment in our lives, I finally go, hey, I'm just going to admit I'm super insecure about this. That's actually, and I had to stop and think, like, why am I reacting this way?
That's good.
And then this little voice spoke inside me and I was like, oh man, am I really going to admit that?
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, yes, I am. I'm going to
good.
confess. This is what I'm insecure about. And then she was like, oh my God, I'm insecure about this.
Good.
And I was like, okay, so we're actually colliding at the level of insecurity.
Yes.
And I was like, we can work with that.
level of insecurity. How many years were y'all married at that time?
It was probably our 6th year of marriage or
No,
something?
we were still living in West Hollywood.
So
that
what's
was
that,
probably
3? 2 or 3?
2 or 3 years.
And what did, quote unquote, poverty? You said you pretty much brought her into this, had a cosign on this poverty. What does poverty look like for you?
Man, we're going to fractal fast. I'm going to say it really briefly, and if you think it will be useful to your audience, I'll go deeper. I used to think I grew up poor. I did not. I have now seen poverty up close. We worked in the inner cities. We've just in the thick of it. And so it is unfair to say that I welcomed her into poverty. I was very educated. We are both educated. We both have a frame of reference that is useful for over time accumulating wealth, which I think is really what separates people from poverty. It's a set of ideas.
Yes.
So anyway, probably a misuse of the word poverty. I made her temporarily broke.
So I went from, my father actually grew up in the mountains of Cyprus, and his toilet was a hole in the floor. Like that's poverty.
That's poverty.
Where he had to, at the age of 11, leave his village because he wanted an education and there was no school, and they would just choose like 3 or 4 kids from each village to leave. So imagine, so my dad goes from that, goes to London, works very hard, studies on the weekend, has us kids, grows up. And so for him, he's like, I've worked so hard to have a roof over your, make sure that you're secure, make sure you're safe, make sure you've got food. And so because he had built that, and I had very good education, and then here comes Tom, who is making lower than minimum wage. He's, at the time, we were part-time maybe? I can't remember.
Why we say lower than minimum wage?
Yeah, you weren't making, were you full-time at?
I was full-time, depending on what period. The only time I was part-time was a period in London.
Okay.
You're a professor, weren't you?
No, that's very generous of you. I love that. I was a teacher.
You're a teacher.
Think of it as like a night school for adults.
Yes, that's a perfect.
It wasn't that level.
No. So literally, he was going from being a teacher and running the office at the same time.
Okay.
So that's kind of like the dynamic.
We ran the math on this. So this is back in the early 2000s. two of us were living on $50,000.
Okay.
So in Los Angeles, I want to be very clear about that.
Yeah.
So we ran the math, and that's the equivalent today of two people living on $72,000 in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Now, if you live in Omaha,
Yeah,
you might be like, you guys were rich. What are you
Yeah.
talking about? In LA, it was a tiny ass apartment.
Yeah.
But we were in a decent neighborhood, didn't have to worry about our safety. Again, we have now seen poverty up
Right.
close. We were not living in poverty, but we couldn't, we had to clip coupons. That's
But-
the best way to think about it.
So my dad, I hadn't been in debt because my dad paid for my college. And so in England, college is slightly different. The government
Yeah.
paid for half
Yeah.
of it, or most of it. So when I met him and he was like, yeah, I have college debt. I was like, what do you mean? And he's
Like,
like, well, I
I've
went to
never heard of
college. I
that
went
before.
to USC. I'd never heard of it before. So he's like, I went to USC. And I was like, oh God. So it was a shock just because I wasn't used to it. And so for
Not
my
only do I have no money, I have negative money.
Yeah.
Negative money.
So here my dad is thinking, here's a guy who isn't making much money, is in debt, and now wants to marry my daughter and take her away. And again, I come from a very traditional Greek Orthodox family. And so for my dad, marrying outside of my culture was a big thing.
Yeah.
And so that was part of what made my dad say no when Tom went and asked for his blessing. Because my dad was like, how are you going to take care of her? And you guys come from different worlds. It won't work. And so the collecting coupons thing was very new to me. So we came to America and so we adjusted. But to me, at the time, it wasn't a big deal because
To you, it wasn't.
no, that he was in debt. No, not at all.
Even from what you've been indoctrinated with this teaching from your father. It's a different type of mentality when a father teaches his daughter something.
And that's true. And here's comes to any woman listening that is torn between an expectation that is put on them and the thing that actually makes them feel like it's real or authentic.
That's good.
And with Tom, the expectation and the belief I actually didn't have. I didn't have the belief that I had to marry a person that was wealthy or had a good job. I didn't have that belief. And so I was really torn between the expectation and then wanting to make my dad proud. And then how
Yeah.
I actually felt. Like if I had to go inside and get in tune with
Yes.
me, Lisa, what do I actually care about? I didn't care about money. I didn't care about that he was in debt. I cared that I'd met somebody who finally saw me.
Ooh.
I get that I finally met somebody who was willing to push me for my own goals and for my own dreams.
He was doing that then?
Yes, even back then. And so I draw as like my hobby and no one had ever cared. And here he was going, you should draw more. It's so beautiful. Art is amazing. And if it's an expression of yours, he bought me like a big Van Gogh book and like of all his artwork. And so that's what I cared about. I felt seen, Lateras. And so that moment of feeling seen, of freaking caring that he was in debt, screw that. You can make money, but that was my idea, right?
Yeah.
If I work hard, that was my dad's belief that he
Yeah.
actually did teach me, is if you work hard and you have a vision and you have a goal and you stay true to yourself, you can get there. So I took that and said, I don't care, we can make money, but I can never find another person I didn't think that could see me the way that I wanted to be seen.
Lisa, you gotta stop. You're finna get me emotional. I'm getting extremely emotional right now because what I'm seeing from Tom is the fact that this little guy, quote unquote, that just striking out with every woman, but his core values was what won you over. And so, but he had to say, listen, let me go ahead and just own who I am. Let me not care about loss. If you lose me, you weren't supposed to be with me to begin with. And he operate in such truth in that state. And then he could come back around in that same moment. It's not like it's so far apart, but win you over through his core values, because that Van Gogh book is who he is. That's the romance side of him. You know, that's the guy sitting in the bushes that's giving his friends the words to say, you know what I'm saying? And so I love that, because what I believe people need to hear and focus more on is those things, those soft skills that we don't promote. Like on social media, we see it all the time. It's all about who, you know, the 50-50, the 100, I need the soft life, all this money stuff. And here you are, because the hindsight been 2020, y'all wasn't where y'all at now. But it meant more. Like that was what meant, because a lot of people can look at y'all and be like, oh, of course, look at what y'all have now. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, but we didn't have it then. Don't judge our love based upon what you see now. You see it everywhere about y'all built $1 billion company, Quest Nutrition. That's not where our love began. Our love was built where you said what, in West Hollywood, and on what would be $50,000 a year combined for two people to live. That's where our love was built, on 50,000, not on $1 billion. And so that's what means a lot to me.
Thank you. And it was because of that foundation that allowed us to start Quest. Because now we've flash forward 8 years later, we've got this tiny little house. I'm so proud of it. I love it. And he's profoundly miserable and I'm profoundly miserable. And so we said, we just need to stop chasing money. Like, what do we actually love to do and what can we do every day? And so the answer, to cut a long story short, he comes home one day and it's a protein bar. And the caveat was, but if we start this protein bar, we have to put our house up for collateral.
Yeah.
Now imagine in that moment, if our foundation wasn't built off accepting each other and loving each other for who we actually are. Because I made a promise when I got married, is that I'm never going to try and change you. I married a man whose ambition I find very attractive. So just because I've got a ring on my finger doesn't mean that now he comes home with an ambitious idea, I then shut it down out of safety and security.
Yes.
I promised I would never change him. So here he is, an ambitious man having a dream, saying, hey, we're putting our house up for collateral. And my answer was, I bet on you. And that is what allowed us to then do another financial cut, put our house up for collateral, and then take the risk that led to us building $1 billion company. But it's that start that I think people end up stopping at because of fear. And I get it, especially as a woman. And you said this quote that just hit me so strong, is that a house is a nest for a woman and a nest egg for a man.
When I heard that quote, I was just like, God, nailed it.
So knowing that, when you have two opposing ideas of what safety may look like, you just talk about it.
Yeah.
And so for us, we really spoke about it. He's like, I need to do this because this is my goal. This is what I'm trying to do. I'm ambitious. We need the capital. And so I was like, cool. This is where my fear is that what if we lose the house? And so we just spoke through it. Okay, well, what if we do lose the house? Where would we live? Okay, well, we wouldn't live on the streets because I do have family and friends that we could sleep on a couch. Okay, cool. So the fear actually isn't going to happen. The fear of, I grew up, again, Greek Orthodox, my dad, tiny village. He's like, you have to eat everything on your plate because there are people starving in the world.
Yep.
He was one of those people that grew up starving. So he knows it. So you can imagine the idea of losing that safety or that security of what I have brings up that fear in me. So again, okay, well, are you actually going to starve though, Lisa? In today's society, with everyone that you know, with the family that you have, are you going to starve? The answer was no. So once I spoke my fear, once we went through it together, we then collectively said, cool, let's do it. But that's how we had to break it down. Whereas once upon a time, if we didn't have that foundation that you said, we just would have fought. I would have said, you can't risk the house. He would have felt like I was trapping him.
Yep.
And then where does that lead? Contempt.
There it is. Question. By that fear being real with you, Tom, and I know you're very optimistic, but knowing that was a pain point early on in your relationship, did you have any fear when you came to her with that conversation? What had been built from a foundational standpoint that may have mitigated that fear after revisiting this situation? How many years apart was that? The tea situation versus the house?
Tea was probably, 20...
Would have been about
2004.
6 to 7 years apart.
About that.
So it's a foundation was built.
Yeah, for sure. Was I afraid? Yes, of course. I think if you run a company, you need to embrace that only the paranoid survive. And so the vast majority of companies fail. And the real question is, what appetite do I have for risk? And it isn't that I don't think the things I do are risky. They are tremendously risky. Building impact theory is still risky despite our resources. And I just have a really high threshold for risk. And one thing, and I am aghast, I clutch my pearls that you let her get away with saying that the reason that she was so enticed by me was that she felt seen. I will just, for anybody that wants to better understand men and women, you have got to understand that there is a big difference and a lot of this stuff is predictable. The other thing she saw was that, I can do something with this guy. So, because when
I don't know. I don't think of it like that.
Okay. So hold on, Lateris. Now let's ask her. What did I call you as a nickname for years at the beginning of our relationship? Let's see if you remember.
Oh God.
For years.
Oh, Lady Macbeth.
Correct. Because Lady Macbeth was behind the scenes like, yo, you got to kill that guy. You got to kill that guy. And I was like, you're my Lady Macbeth.
Well, so here's then the truth. It wasn't that clear, but what it was, I grew up with a father that was very ambitious and was driven. And so I saw that in him. And so my dad was very kind, my dad was very ambitious, my dad was very attentive. I met a guy that was very kind, very ambitious, very attentive. And so when you would go into it was like, I was very comfortable to be around somebody like that. And I do see the power in it. Now, I wasn't thinking of it like, let me manipulate him.
It's so, it is an instinct. It is intuitive.
Yeah.
You don't have to convince me. Like the one thing I've always said, I have not earned my height. I have not earned whatever intellect I have. And the one that I give all the credit to, I've not earned my ambition. I have been ambitious from the day I was born because that's what men are wired to do. You have to go watch a season of Alone and tell me why you think that people have ambition, because you've got to look at a world that is trying to kill you at every turn. Dude, history is nothing but one sequence of brutality after another. From the elements, they'll kill you. Pathogens, they'll kill you. Humans, they'll kill you. Bears, kill you. Lions, tigers, kill you. We live in a modern era and we have really forgotten like how hardcore nature had to make us to survive. Now, in a world where through, I hope this word's okay, through sexual selection, women are the sexual gatekeepers, which means that offspring are what you want them to be. And so the things that you reward, you have made us a dimorphic species where men are just way stronger in the upper body. And so now you have effectively created an animal that can ruin you. We think about it in a historical context. There's no outing somebody on Twitter. There is only, you're in a small village, and if I don't like what you're doing, the only thing that stops me from beating you to death is effectively social norms. So this is why all the things that we've had to do throughout history to like cage that animal in the human, the number one female mythology is Beauty and the Beast, where a woman tames the wild man who now for her is tamed. Okay, so this is the female psyche. This is what nature had to do. So what you learned, you in the like overarching span, again, God has given us evolution, great. But you realize, oh, I'm not going to be able to confront the world head on because I will get beaten to death quite literally. So women are far more strategic than men. They are far more subtle. They are far more behind the scenes. You couldn't stop yourself from telling me, hey, you should really ask for this meeting. You should push for this. And over here, ask for that. I remember thinking, that's really smart. That's really smart.
This is good.
And so I'm telling you.
I was just pushing back on that. It wasn't deliberate or like...
People don't like to hear it, but I am here only to tell the truth. So look, why does Tom Bilyeu care about the truth? For one reason and one reason only. It is unimaginably difficult to even define what is true. So I'll give you a definition that I think we will all agree on. If you are close to the truth, and I say close because it really is just proximity, it is not absolute. The closer you get to the truth, the more able you are to predict the outcome of your behaviors. So, hey, we're trying to use GPS. If you're using Newtonian physics, and I know you hate it when I bring up physics, all you have to hear is the difference. If you're trying to do GPS, if you're trying to do GPS with Newtonian physics, it won't work. And yet, for God knows how many hundreds of years, Newtonian physics, we thought that was it. That explains everything in the world, because now we understand that the Earth revolves around the sun and not the other way around. Oh my God, like now I can predict where the moons are going to be and all that. It works, but it only works so far. Now you're Einstein, and you say that isn't true. Truth is here, and now you can split the atom. Now you can do GPS. You've got nuclear energy, nuclear bombs, radio. I mean, just like the modern world hinges on, we got a step closer to what's true. So I'm saying, you want a high-functioning marriage like mine? Figure out what the truth is. Stop saying the PR message. get to what is true.
You're saying I'm saying the PR mission?
No, people,
Humans. So when I say, you're like Lady Macbeth, like there's a discomfort there.
There is.
But at the same time,
it's an attraction as well.
it's incredibly powerful. Okay, I'm not a crier. There was one time I was in so much physical pain, I actually tried to cry and couldn't. However,
Really?
yes. However,
What is wrong with you, Tom?
I one time ugly cried because I realized
Something emotional.
she will never get credit for having helped me become who I've become. This is back when she was behind the scenes. And so I'm like, people think that this is just me. And I know I don't know who I would have become had I not met you. We have
Tom,
shaped
that's
each other.
Good Lord, this is good.
And you have to lean into that. You don't.
You said you ugly cried just by the notion that people would not realize or know that she was the wind beneath your wings.
Not only that she had shaped me in the way that a sculptor shapes clay. That I have done the same to her. And what I
Tom,
want
you
people
gonna get you something tonight. You gonna get you something tonight. What you just said right there, boy. Let me tell you something. She's
she's heard it so many times. She knows that is true. That we built this empire together. And the thing is, people don't understand. You're bringing different things to the table. And so when I see men acting like women and I see women acting like men, I'm like, hold on.
Yeah.
You were already equal.
Yeah.
You bring different things. And cool, like do your thing, but find somebody who complements you.
Yes.
So if you're gonna be super feminine, find somebody who's gonna be super masculine.
Yeah.
It just, that dynamic, now you can each shape each other and push each other. And again, evolution is trying to keep you alive long enough to have kids that have kids. So you need a spouse to help you raise that child, to help you do well in society. Because there was a time, if you got ostracized, you were dead.
Yeah.
And so we are just wired for that. All right, I'll stop.
No, I'm oh my God. I love talking to a brilliant mind. You keep bringing up kids a lot. And you guys don't have kids. How have y'all dealt with that? Because let me ask you, do you want kids, Tom?
I want kids very badly. However, the only thing that I want more than I want to have kids is to not have kids. Now, I will say that as a PSA, I really believe the surest path to fulfillment is children, to have a strong marriage and to have kids. And so in some ways, because my public message is different than the way that I live my life, I do have a little bit of guilt about it because one, it's good for society. Have kids. Please don't buy into the myth that we're going to run out of resources. We are not. We are so far from that. Right now, we are on a one-way path to population collapse.
Yeah, I heard that.
So, and that's just math. Nobody needs to take my word for it. You can just go look at it. Just remember, it takes 18 years to make an adult. So the math is what the math is. There's no short stepping that one. So I believe that the only thing people should pursue in life is fulfillment. Now, fulfillment has a recipe, but the easiest way to get that is obviously the one that nature has shaped you for, which is to have a high-functioning relationship and have children. So I do not want people to look at us and go, oh man, that's the dream life. For a long time, we thought we were gonna have kids. Just the way that it has ended up working for us is that very much like, I don't understand people that want to die because I want to wake up tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I just assume I will always want to wake up tomorrow. So I would like to be alone with my wife tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so it just kept being that. So we were like, yeah, we're going to have kids. We're going to have kids. 18 months, 18 months, 18 months, 18 months. And then it finally got to the point where she was like, actually, I want to be an entrepreneur. And then she started doing that. She was like, actually, I don't know that I do want to have kids in 18 months, which we'd been saying for 9 years. Which is literally true. I had a stack of baby books next to my bed, and then finally I was like, I'm not so sure. So anyway, that is where we...
So y'all both changed.
Yes, that is for sure.
But even that decision, it took a lot for us to talk through.
I can imagine.
Because growing up Greek Orthodox, I thought I was going to have kids, and I was told my whole life that was my purpose in life, was to be a wife and a mother. And so when we got married, I said I wanted 4 children. And as we started Quest, and as that, we were like 18 months, because Tom was saying, babe, I'm building, we're going to make movies, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Like, I'm not ready to be a father yet. So like, okay, 18 months. And then I started getting older and older, and the more questions are coming from the parents, when you're going to have kids, when you're going to have, so the pressure was on. So then we start Quest, and a year in, I'm like, I love this. I went from staying at home for 8 years, supporting my husband, which I think is a beautiful thing if you want it. I didn't want that. That wasn't my dream. That wasn't going back to fulfillment that he said. It wasn't fulfilling me. So once Quest started and I started to realize the things that I was capable of, the fact that I could grow new skills, that yesterday I was insecure about this one thing, but then I tried it and it succeeded and I've learned and I'm more powerful for it. That process helped me build my confidence because I wasn't confident. And in the process of building my confidence, I started to ask myself questions I never allowed myself to ask.
Yes.
Like, do you actually want children? Because it didn't even dawn on me I could ask. I was like, 28? It never occurred to me to even ask myself the question if I wanted children.
Because you've been told that that's what you're supposed to do.
Exactly. And so once I started to have this internal conflict between I love what I'm doing every day and there's when you're going to have children, we sat down and we spoke about it. And he told me how he felt. And he said, look, and this is what our relationship is built on, utter honesty. I need to hear the truth, whether you feel bad or ashamed, we have to say the truth. And so he was like, look, you know I'm ambitious. You know the man that you married. And so if we have children, I will support, I will love that child, but I'm not coming home at 7 p.m. in the evening to sit down for dinner. I'm not going to wake up in the middle of the night because I have to be strong with my cognitive, load to make decisions. So I'm not going to be waking up in the middle of the night. And on the weekends, because I really want to be a great father, I'm going to want to spend time with the kids. How are you going to feel about that? As my wife, that you feel like a basically single parent Monday to Friday, and on the weekends I spend time with the kids. And that now the priorities have changed. So my priority used to be him. If I had children, my kids would go above him, and then for him, the priorities would change as well. And so we just sat, and he said, "This is who I am, and this is." And so I was like, "Thank you for being honest," because the last thing I wanted was for him to pretend, and then for us to have children, and then now we're fighting over the fact that I'm getting up in the middle of the night, and I feel like I'm doing it alone, and where's the attention on me, and when do I get to spend time with you? All of those things we'd already discussed. And so that allowed me to take a step back and say, okay, Lisa, now have a look at what life would look like with children. And I talk about it in my book, Radical Confidence, where it's about what does an average Wednesday look like? Because we can all get really caught up in the emotion of the beauty of having a child. I really want to feel what it feels like to be pregnant. Like I've dreamt of that day.
Yeah.
And I had to let that go. I had to grieve.
How long ago was that?
This was, I think I was around 30 when we finally decided. So that was, 14 years ago? But I finally had to let go of the thing that I thought I was going to have, I actually don't want. But there are other things that I actually am going to miss. I am no longer going to have the feeling of what it's like to be pregnant.
Yeah.
I'm no longer going to have that little kid or seeing my husband with our child.
Yeah.
Like I could lose myself on the thought that emotional moment can then lead me to making a decision that doesn't serve me long term. And what I mean by that is, what does an average Wednesday look like for me? And so that means knowing that he's not going to come home in the night for dinner and all of that, an average Wednesday if I work. Okay, well, I'm waking up in the middle of the night because I want to be there for my child. I'm then trying to get up, and I love working out because it makes me feel powerful. So, okay, when am I going to get to the gym? Well, then I'm at work, but what if the kid is sick? Then I have to take time off. And look, people figure it out.
Yeah.
So that's the truth. You can figure it out. And I gave myself the understanding that, Lisa, you will figure it out.
Of course.
But do you actually want to? Does that sound exciting? Then here's another bucket, another door you can walk in, is you don't have any children. Cool, I go to work, I build Quest, that's what that life looks like. The other bucket is you leave work and you're a full-time mother. That's another possibility. What does that look like? So I looked at what my life could look like on an average Wednesday without all the emotions and oxytocin making me feel in love with the child and my husband. You do on an average freaking Wednesday. What bucket do I actually want to be in? And the answer was, I wanted to be in the bucket where I crush it at work and I build something long-term with my husband.
And y'all are both in total alignment. Y'all haven't vacillated between that in the last 14 years.
No, and here's what's interesting, and I had to be, again, very honest. If, God forbid, we made this decision, and God forbid I turn 50 and he passes away, something happens to him, I have to address that. I can't pretend.
I know it.
So now I'm 50, I've made a choice to not have children, and my husband, the love of my life, is gone. How am I going to feel? Am I going to regret not having kids? I had to ask myself that, because here's the flip side, Lateris. If I pass away and he's 50, he can still have kids.
Yeah.
And so even in this discussion, I need to be honest.
Would you, Tom?
Have kids?
Yes.
Probably not. That would be such a life departure for me. If I'm honest, I don't know that I would get back into a long-term relationship.
Yeah,
I'd really have to think about that.
Yeah.
So this just gets into
I
my
encourage him
personality.
too, though. Just so
I know,
people-
but the way
Yeah,
he thinks,
100%.
he probably wouldn't.
For better or worse, I collapse inside my own imagination. And it is very clear to me that nothing has brought me more joy ever than the relationship with my wife. But imagine you had to wake up tomorrow and go back to kindergarten.
I know it.
And there's no fast way to make a long-term relationship. So the idea of going back to, I don't know this person, and building all the way. Now look, I may change my mind after being alone for a while, 100%. And then it would honestly come down to, who is the person that I fell in love with? Do they want kids? But the thing I always try to explain to people, I don't have a sense of something missing in my life. It's not like we had a kid and they died.
Yeah.
So it's like, my dog, I'm sure, looks at me and thinks, how do you get through life not being able to smell anything? Like, your sense of smell is just, it's embarrassing. But I don't have a sense of it's missing. This is just what I know, you know what I mean? And then on top of that, look, I big brothered for 8.5 years about. So I know what it's like to truly love somebody that looks to you for, like, make the world make sense and show me that somebody loves me. And it's not the same as having your own child. I understand that, but it is a variant of it. As somebody who's done it, I will just tell you, like, it's unbelievable. Like, it is one of the most amazing experiences of my life. That's why I did it for 8.5 years.
Yeah.
It's actually why recently I've thought, because one thing that I was hoping you were going to say is, at 50, I die, will she regret it? Yes. So at 80, we've always said we will regret not having had kids when we're 80, because all the things that feed us now, running a company, the lives that we're touching and stuff, there's just a reality to be faced that part of our life will be over. And we need to start planning now for how we deal with that.
Right.
Now, my thing is, if something is predictable, then it need not be traumatizing. You know it's coming, you can plan for it. So I just really believe that people need to understand there are going to be different phases in your life, and it's very wise to check in and say, oh, when my other friends have grandkids, because it's easy when they have young kids to be like, suckers, right? But when they have, adult kids that are doing incredible things and they feel like their kids are like their friends, and then they have grandkids and it's like all the joy of having kids without any of the responsibility, then how am I going to feel? Because they're going to be laughing at me, right? Because I'm here working, 90 hours a week and they're off playing. So you really want to check in with those different phases and be like, ooh, this one's going to sting. So how am I going to prepare for that? This one's going to be downright risky, because if only one of us is alive, or God forbid one of us has dementia or something like that, bro, like, having people around you to help is a real thing. And so you do need to be thoughtful about those things. This is why I say the standard life path, if somebody's asking my advice, the standard life path is get married, have a high functioning relationship, have children, make them the focus of your life, and like, it will pay you dividends. It's like, financially, I don't think most people should start a company. Did it pay off well for me? Yes. Do I think it's the right path forward for just, I don't know you and I need to give you advice? No. I think an index fund that you buy into month after month with your paycheck, some percentage automatically, that's the right way. Now, by all means, deviate from that. I don't think people should feel like they have to live any one path, but you have to be honest with yourself. that in some phases of your life, it will be a great choice, and in other phases, it will be terrible. There's always a way around it, though. But
So you're really this analytical about everything.
Yeah, it's interesting. I would not apply the word analytical to it. So here is what I would say. Dear boys and girls, do that which moves you towards your goals. So I know what my goals are, and I know how to think from first principles. That's it. That's all I'm doing. I'm not trying to overanalyze something. I'm just saying I know how I want to feel fulfilled. It's the only neurochemical state that can survive grief, for instance. I don't want to be happy. Happy's lovely, hyper transient. A bowl of ice cream makes me happy, but it does not fulfill me.
It's a hyper transient.
Yeah.
But when you look at, like you said, I can foresee 80 years old, say Lisa and I, y'all grow old together, y'all sitting on the porch. Y'all don't have porches out here in LA, but we're gonna go back to the South, sitting on the porch in rocking chairs, sipping cold glass of lemonade, and you're saying, well, baby, y'all amass this wealth, y'all have money, y'all don't have to work no more, other people are running your companies, and you're saying that that's enough, not to see, not to have gone to a wedding and give your daughter away, and not to have little grandkids, that you can look from the present to the future and say, and I'm okay with that.
No. In fact, what I'm saying is I know how to build a frame of reference and a lifestyle that will protect me from the inevitable, devastating emotional consequences that will arrive if I'm unprepared from not having kids.
Wow.
Dude, the number, this is gonna be way more brutal for women, but the number of women that are gonna wake up at 35, 45, top of their law firm and be like, I hate every minute of this, because their hormones are going to change. Their frame of reference is going to change. They will not be able to stop it. And all of a sudden, what made sense in the earlier, use the word season, what made sense in the earlier season doesn't make sense now. The way you act in summer is not the way you act in winter.
Exactly.
And so what I'm saying is now in our youth and all of that, running a company, high energy, all of that, running businesses over everything makes sense. But when the winter of being 80 years old comes and I have no children to make me feel like I'll live on, I'll have no kids to look after me, to be proud of, to give me that sense of like I still am engaged in the world through them, right? That will come for us. Now, we talk about that and we say, okay, cool, it's predictable. So let us not arrive at 80 and be like, oh my God, we suddenly feel devoid of meaning and purpose. So you have to go, okay, this is coming, how do we deal with this? And then one thing I will just encourage people to do, ask yourself, has anybody done this before me? And so when they have, now you've at least got a blueprint. So I'm a big history buff. So one of the more famous people, Benjamin Franklin, did not have kids. And so he mentored as he got older. And obviously he also stayed very intellectually active. The vast majority of the things that we know about him were all like post 50. But knowing that mentorship for me, for sure, will certainly be that makes me feel good. But frame of reference is a really important thing. So frame of reference is your unique biology plus your belief system plus your values. Now, if you get very aware of those three buckets, you can shape these things. And so my frame of reference right now, I've chosen to value scale. So I only do things if they can reach millions of people. I won't even do it if it can't. But as I approach 80, I'm gonna be like, nobody cares what 80-year-olds have to say, so I'm not gonna be scaling anymore. Like, how many Warren Buffetts are there? Like 5. So people just pay less and less attention to you as you get older. Okay,
Unless
so that
wanted it.
I'm saying that it would be an unwise strategy from a do what moves you towards your goals perspective. Because now you're asking yourself to be not just in the 0.01%, the 0.00001%.
Which, by the way, I still believe is possible, so...
Yeah,
cool. So let's put it as an option on the table.
Yes.
Okay. So maybe I do that. Facts.
Oh
But
God.
you see,
Oh no, here I am.
hold on. You're sharpening my thinking, literally in real time. So this is why people should want disconfirming evidence. My wife is not a yes woman. She says what she thinks is true, and that has served us tremendously.
So I also believe that if at the age of 80 you wanted to be like Warren Buffett, you would. Because I believe in your ability to get that. skill set.
Extremely generous, and Lord knows I love that you look at me like that.
But I do. I mean, and so that's also the thing, right? In a relationship, you've got to, and it's not false belief. I want to mention.
It's real.
But that's when you believe in each other that strongly and you support each other that strongly. In fact, isn't it a quote that you said where it's like the most successful people have the most stable home lives?
It's not my quote, but it is something I say often.
So when you think about it, it's because he's not afraid to go out and take a risk, because even if he fails, he knows that he's got a home to come back to where I'm going to be here to support him no matter what. And sorry, I kind of cut you off about the 80s.
Nah, what you just said was great.
God dog it. See, y'all trying to make me cry over here. Lisa, you sit over and you just be quiet. You don't say nothing else. I don't care about him saying you'll say everything. You finna mess me up. God, dog. You said he goes out into the world. That's what's so beautiful about it, is the ability to go out into the world and fail and not come home a failure.
I'm proud of him that he gave it a shot and that he didn't let his fear take over. And it encourages me to then use that the next time I'm fearful.
Yep.
And so when you can be an example to each other and take that risk, because like he said, like business is all about taking risks. And when you're ambitious, you need to take risks. And it doesn't mean that you're going to win all the time. It means, in fact, you're going to fail a lot more than you're going to win. And so if you have somebody who just supports you and is like, we'll get, and this is actually true. We always say to each other, we're not there to just sit on the floor with the other person and cry. We're there to stick out the hand and pull you back up. And so we've made each other a promise. Now, it doesn't mean that we don't give space. Of course we do. Like if I'm sad or something's gone wrong and I just need to be heard, he'll give me all the space in the world. But he'll never just console me and then leave it at that. It will be, now what are we going to do? How are we going to get back up? How are we going to do it together?
Often in different meetings, just to be clear,
Yes,
different
yes.
times.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
sometimes you really do just want to, you are heard, you are understood, and then let it sit for a few days.
Do you believe in God? He asked you that question at your first date.
Yeah.
What was your answer to that?
At the time, I said yes, and he said, why? And the only answer I could give was because my dad told me to. And that gives you an idea of exactly who I was then, where I didn't have my own thoughts, I didn't have my own beliefs, I didn't question what I was taught. I didn't question whether that aligned with me or not.
P.S. That isn't true.
What?
You had your own thoughts. You were one of the most fiendishly, like, I know what I'm about,
I
I'm
was
here for this.
stubborn,
But you had core beliefs that you had never challenged.
What's the difference?
I wouldn't have been attracted to you if you were just packaging up what your dad told you to think and you were spewing that.
No, I think it's when it comes to, let's say, core beliefs. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Some
you're right.
core beliefs.
Yes. So my core beliefs, I'd never questioned. I was definitely strong-willed, but a lot of it was I was being the person I thought I should be, and instead of actually asking what feels right, who do I want to be, what do I want to believe in, why do I believe in this, so.
And so over that period of time, now you've escaped the thought and the belief of God?
I wouldn't even say escaped. I've got a lot of questions that I don't have answers to. And I know that a lot of people that believe in God, and I am so close to a lot of people and I respect it. And I look for evidence, and I know that everybody who believes in God says, well, now you've lost, because it's the faith,
It's the
right?
faith, yeah.
And so I'm still very curious, is the
Yeah.
truth. I ask, a lot of people around me and their thoughts and their beliefs, and kind of just, I'm a student, is how I like to think of myself. But yeah, it was, what didn't feel right was when I was growing up, that people would use going to hell as a mechanism to threaten me to be good.
Yeah.
It never sat well with me, because I was
Right.
like, shouldn't I just be a good person? Like, isn't it be nice to this person because that's the right thing to do, not because at the time, being young, that was what my grandmother was saying, you're going to hell if you do this, right? Like, it was very much pushed
Yeah.
on me that if you do this, you're going to, and so it never sat well with me. And so maybe it's just the messaging and the way it was packaged, to be honest. But yeah, we talk about it a lot, and I've got Jewish friends, I've got Muslim friends.
No, stay curious. That's what I love about y'all, is that y'all exist in this space of curiosity, and And so I'm not here to proselytize y'all, evangelize y'all. They're just saying stay curious. I'm learning so much from y'all about just foundational principles on how not only to do life better, to expand my thinking as a man, as a future husband, but also, y'all have given reference to my own thoughts and ideals on how I want to cultivate my future marriage, to have a space where we're honest, transparent, vulnerable. Let's talk about these fears. Let's exist in these. Let's have conversations about insecurities so that we can find those pain points, so that we can navigate those spaces and grow from them. Most divorces end because of that. They don't want to talk about those insecurities. They build up resentment and contentment towards one another, and then they get a divorce. And if you were to ask them, why you get divorced? I don't know. We grew apart. How can you live with somebody, coexist in the bed with them nightly, and then you grow apart? That means that y'all weren't communicating. And so what I love that you guys have been able to do is y'all been able to cultivate a healthy relationship and this place of fulfillment. I'm gonna use y'all's word back. Do y'all feel fulfilled in this space right now? In this, where y'all at in y'all life, in y'all's marriage? Do you feel fulfilled?
Ooh. No.
No. Tom?
Yeah, very much so.
So why no, Lisa?
Part of my fulfillment is really helping 14-year-old girls, and I haven't done that yet.
Wow.
Because when I was 14, I was very insecure. I was teased for my looks and bullied, and I always promised myself as we started to build our wealth and our success was I need to help the little Lisa that never believed in herself, because imagine how many girls are out there now. If I can help them when they're young, they don't have to do all the unwiring that I've had to do.
Yes.
And so I love my show, I love my book, I love everything that I do. So I do feel fulfilled in that aspect. But I think for me, the true fulfillment is to actually have young girls be more confident because of something I've done in the world.
Tom, why do you feel so fulfilled right now?
Fulfillment has a very predictable recipe from evolution, and that recipe is you have to work really hard to gain a set of skills that allow you to serve not only yourself but others in a way that you find exciting. And I have handcrafted my post-Quest life to be that. I get a talk for a living. One of our largest streams of revenue is just from the words that I make come out of my mouth. I get to research topics I find utterly fascinating. I'm building a video game, which is my deepest passion. I could not be more excited about that.
And you talked about that. I never knew how much video games cost. You're talking about this video games can cost starting the point at what, 600 million to like $1 billion?
Well, to cost $1 billion now, you're like, I think if I'm not mistaken, Grand Theft Auto 6 cost $1 billion.
Cost $1 billion.
Most games are going to be somewhere, AAA titles are going to be somewhere in the 150 million, 250 million range plus marketing. So yeah, it's like
the industry itself versus, because we were going into movies, and movies you were saying is like $1 billion industry. And
yeah, to me they're the same things, just different formats. And video games ate the film industry a long time ago. So it's something like 20 times bigger. I mean, it's just massive compared to film. So yes, they can be very expensive. We're an indie studio, so our budgets aren't like that. But building a video game that has a philosophy at its core of empowerment is awesome. But it is gruelingly difficult, and I love that. So getting good at something that is fulfillment. So Tony Robbins says this a lot, and I think he's bang on, that progress is a foundational pillar of human happiness, meaning you cannot be happy if you're not making progress. So for anybody out there that feels lost, the reason you feel lost is because if you have a goal and you're moving towards it, you're getting dopamine every time you make even minor progress towards that thing. You can get a dopamine rush just for trying something that may move you towards it.
Yes.
And so if you don't have a goal, you break that. You can't get the dopamine from pursuit. And so that's a big reason why people end up feeling lost. So because I have that loop in my life, And this is very important, it's all nested in the context of the most important thing to me in this world is this woman. And so we're building it together. She makes me better. She makes the company better. But at the same time, I get to be intimate with her. We love a lot of the same things. And look, men need to serve their women. There can be no doubt about that. But ladies, if I could, one more PSA for today, make your man feel powerful.
Yes.
If you make your man feel powerful, everything else will be easy.
Yeah.
Everything else will be easy. Oh man, people are gonna hate this, but whatever's true is true.
It's true.
If a woman makes more money than her man, erectile dysfunction medication use goes up, more likely to get divorced, the woman is more likely to be dissatisfied, and spousal abuse goes up. So for better or worse, I'm not justifying it. I'm just saying it is true that the secret to a man is to make him feel powerful. And she makes me feel powerful. So, I mean, you guys saw it here in real time. When I was like, when I'm 80, like, I don't know. And she's like, no, you can do it. Whatever you say, you might do. So like, she pathologically cannot stop herself from doing that. No cameras, no one's around. I'm like, this just isn't working. She's like, you're just not working hard enough. I know you can do it. You'd be number one. Like, you just have to put more energy. I believe in you. And I'm like, geez, but look at the numbers. Like, we need a different approach. No, like it. And I'm like, oh, sorry. She just believes.
And she's been like that since day one?
No.
Or did she mature into that?
You have to earn that.
Yeah.
So it's not her maturing. It's that in the beginning, we were attracted to each other, but we didn't know enough about each other to know if that was going to be real or not. And then over time, I mean, look, of course, there were moments early on where she's like, whoa, like whatever you just did, I like that.
Well, in fact, what did I text you yesterday? Just yesterday, we've been married for 21 years, been together for 23, and then what did I text you yesterday?
The way your brain works turns me on. So she was listening to one of my podcasts, and she's like, ooh.
I was like, and he's like, which one? I was like, I don't know. I didn't even understand what you were saying. Like, you were saying words that I've never heard of before, but it was so sexy. And so just like, but going to like, when he said, making a man feel powerful, I'll never lie, I'll never fake it.
Yeah.
But I'll make an effort to make sure that I say the words when I think it, to encourage and to keep that connection. And then that last part of the powerful thing as well is know how to make your man to feel powerful.
There it is.
And the same, like, I want to feel seen. And so he says, what is it? What do I need to do to make you feel seen?
I want you to say that. What does he do? Because you talked about that, and that's why I said I want to talk to him.
Yeah.
What does he do throughout the day?
So I don't drink tea anymore, but I would wake up in the morning and the kettle was boiled. And that was a discussion though. It doesn't happen by accident.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, babe, what can I do to make you feel thought of? Because that's your love language.
Yep.
And so I was like, I don't know, you're
Does she
really
need
busy.
to do a new thing like that?
Yeah, I don't drink it anymore, so he doesn't do it. And he actually said, I'm disappointed because I can't do it for you every morning now. But,
Tom, you better work, Tom.
But he was just saying, what is it that I can do? And I was like, I don't know. Just show me that you think of me. What does that look like? Well, I drink coffee. Okay, well, what if I boiled the kettle? Would that make you feel thought of? Yes, actually. Okay, so we discuss what it actually means, not just... So Valentine's Day, I said to him, babe, I'm really looking for romance this Valentine's Day. And he's like, okay, but what does that mean to you?
Yeah.
Do you need me to go and book a restaurant? I was like, no, I don't care about any of that. But I really do love flowers and I love candles. And that was it. That's all I had to say. And he just went and got a bunch of candles and got these incredible flowers and did this whole surprise for me. But I articulated it to him. And that's the thing. I'm not looking for him to be a mind reader. He's not looking for me to be a mind reader. What we're looking to do is communicate our needs and then see and hope that the other person reciprocates.
Oh boy, y'all making me so emotional. Because what I just love when people just get it right. Me having gone through a divorce 8 years ago, it's like when I look at this, it's like, this is right. This is how you get to right. Not being a mind reader. A lot of people be like, no, he should just know. Like, how you expect him to know? We're wired differently. The way a man thinks and the way a woman thinks is so vastly different. Why can't you just say it? Why can't you just say this is what I need, and then he does that? Now, if you have if you tell him and he has a problem doing it, then you're saying, okay, now you're just being selfish, or vice versa. But if I can articulate my needs, which I should, and be like, I feel seen when you do X, Y, Z, and I feel empowered when you do X, Y, Z. Y'all just take the guesswork out of it and just get to loving.
Well, can I tell you a quick story of how we got to that? Because we do it right because we've done it wrong so many times before that. So
What
the
happened?
best story, and we really learned the lesson. We were about a year in, and it was Christmas time. And so he was going back to his families, and I was in England.
Okay.
And I thought, if he loves me, if he cares about me, he'll know. Right? I had that. That was my
What he
mental.
wants.
What I want.
Okay.
He'll know. I've said it 1,000. I've hinted to him on multiple occasions that I really want this watch, and it's this watch that I was at Guess, and I kept repeating it to him. We'd walk past the Guess shop. I'd be like, "Oh, they've got that lovely watch that I really like." Right? Hinting, but never actually saying, "I want this for Christmas," because I thought that a woman should never do that.
Yeah.
So Christmas comes. I'm like, "I've hinted to you," and he's like, "I've nailed it." So there's a gift under the tree. He's in Tacoma, Washington, and I'm opening it. I'm like, okay, it feels the right size. And I open it, and it wasn't a watch, Lateris. It was teeth whitening strips.
Yeah. I wish this story were made up.
It is true.
Why would you get some?
Why would he get me teeth whitening strips, Lateris? Why? Now here's the thing. He so tried to get it right.
It was the only thing I could think of that she had mentioned.
He was like, what did she mention? Oh, God. And so God, now in that moment, do you think, in hindsight, why would you? But think about it. He really tried to deliver on what I wanted. How do you think he felt?
Yeah, he felt real bad.
He felt real bad.
I felt stupid.
He
I
felt
was like, I
stupid.
couldn't believe it.
found it hilarious. I was like, what the hell? What did I say? Are my teeth that bad? Like, you start getting into paranoia. But he was so disappointed.
Yeah.
And when I spoke to him, I heard how upset he was.
But you can still see it now. Even when you bring up the story, he says,
But it's a great
his whole
story.
body
I
is
still got to tell
dejected.
it. But it was the perfect lesson of, if you're not testing him, I'm setting him up to fail. And now he feels badly that he didn't deliver.
If I'm testing him, I'm setting him up to fail. Yeah.
So once we started being honest with each other, then it was, I'm telling you exactly what I need and what I want. And then if you're able to deliver, that's one thing. If you don't, that shows things as well. They didn't want to. They didn't take it seriously. You weren't priority. Like, if that happened, then I really would explore. If I told him this and he still didn't do it, why not? And then that is the path then you explore. But set them up for success.
Set them up for success. Radical Confidence. You have this book coming out.
I do.
You had an additional chapter. What made you do a revision of this book, if you would?
What I realized was in doing my show and having so many deep conversations about relationships, the one thing I realized is so many women lose their confidence when they've been somebody with a long time. Let's say they've been toxic or they've just been demeaned year after year or time after time. The confidence that a woman can lack because of a toxic relationship, whether you've got an amazing career and amazing family, if you are caught in a toxic relationship, I've seen way too many women's confidence be completely derailed. And so I had added that chapter in telling the story about when I was young and my first relationship was with a guy for 4 years, and he was very verbally abusive, he was very toxic. And I think too, what if I never left that relationship? What if I didn't have the courage to leave? Where would my life be now compared to where it is? And that's how bad a toxic relationship can really impact you, your confidence, and your future, and the person you want to be. And so I felt like it was so important to add that chapter and give in my own stories as a reflection of like, look, I was here. This is what my life would have looked like if I didn't make that change. And you can too. It's not going to be easy. And then I break down what are the flags, what are the things you can recognize, what are the things that actually, what's your part in it? Because the truth was, Lateris, I became toxic too.
Oh,
it was a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
It was when you get that and you feel like that's love and your only way to survive is to give as good as you get. I started to do that.
How long did it take you to recognize that, for you to admit it?
To admit it, wow, I mean, and probably now.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
Yeah.
to own my part in
Yeah.
that. And I had a choice. I could have left, but I chose to stay and then become toxic because I perceived that as love.
Yeah.
Now, look, again, you do the best you can do with the knowledge that you have.
Yeah.
I was 16, and so I didn't have the knowledge and I didn't have the understanding. So going back to how do I help the 14-year-old or the
Yeah.
younger me is to make sure that people recognize the impact that being in a toxic relationship can actually have, not just on your relationship, but your self-esteem and everything else that you do.
Why'd you name this book Radical Confidence?
Everyone kept saying, Lisa, you're so confident. And I was like, who are they talking to? Like,
You didn't see yourself as that?
no, even now, if you hear the voice in my head of how negative and how demeaning it is and how insecure I can be on certain things, you wouldn't perceive me as confident. Now, in certain areas, I've built it.
Right.
So take me right now today where people are looking. They're watching me on camera, on video, right? There was a time that I was so petrified to get in front of the camera, I said no to getting in front of the camera. And my husband held me to my goal. And he said, babe, you've told me you want to help women. I'm like, I do.
Good.
And he's like, okay, so you're about to start this podcast, but you're saying you want to do it audio only. I was like, yeah, because I'm not going to get in front of the camera. Like, people are going to make fun of me. And he said, okay, but you're making a choice. And in that moment, I realized I did have a choice. It was my ego or my mission. And when I could call myself on that honesty of what's more important, my ego or my mission, it was easy for me to say my mission. And then I had to get into the habit of how do I then get in front of the camera? Like, it's one thing saying, okay, I want to do it. It's a whole other thing actually doing it. And when people say, no, feel the fear and do it anyway. I'm like, then you don't understand what it's like to be me and have this negative voice in my head.
Yeah.
Because if you're telling me just to do it, it doesn't feel real. I cannot just step in front of the camera and just do it when I have this type of fear.
Yeah.
And so I realized I had a list and almost like a blueprint of the things that I do when I'm fearful. So how do I motivate myself? I put on my jewelry, I do my hairstyle, I listen to music, I tell myself mantras. Like, I have these actual steps that I take in order to do the things that I'm so scared of.
Yeah.
And so I realized that radical confidence means you've got to get radical. You've got to get outside yourself. You've got to do something that you've never done before. But in the book, I list tools of how to do it, and I mix my own stories into it.
Listen, Lit Fam, you heard it. This book. Well, this is gonna be this book. I actually have this book. I'm looking at it. I have the first version of it.
You got the first
version. I was like,
yes,
hey.
you did.
Yeah, it actually sits in my closet, and when I'm in my closet getting my clothes, I go and flip through some stuff. So, hey, I'm not ashamed of that I'm reading this pink book. But hey, listen, it's amazing. But listen, make sure, Lit Fam, that y'all support this book. We want to see Lisa hit the New York Times bestsellers list. Wouldn't that be amazing? Listen, because I take it as a great honor that, they allowed me to come here to LA and shoot on their set. Have you ever had somebody shoot on y'all set before?
A couple of times, yeah.
It's the first time they've ever done this.
Ever have we done this
This is the
before.
first time they've ever done that, is allow somebody to come shoot on their set, and so I take that as a great honor. It's amazing. But listen, thank y'all so much for just chopping it up with me. Gosh, I'm gonna watch this episode over and over again and just take notes because I believe y'all dropped so many gems. Tom, I had no idea. I've watched a lot of your interviews, but it's more of the business side of stuff. But to hear you get in the trenches of relational conversations, I'm like, you're a dope dude. You're a really dope dude. And again, what made me decide to want to talk to you is because of how you've been loving this woman and having that conversation with her. And she just, and he does this and he does this and this. And I'm like, and it seems so simple, the stuff that you're doing, but it's those things that people forget to do. And that's what's so bad about it. And so, and then you've given her the space to thrive. Oftentimes you see women always supporting the men and their visions and their goals and their aspirations, and men never turn and say, but babe, what do you want? You have purpose. What do you want? Because I want to serve you. I want to help you. And she said, you're the one that motivated her to have Women of Impact. You're like, hey, why don't you do this? And so, again, I salute you, King, for being a man of purpose, for covering this woman properly. Lisa, I salute you for empowering this man. I believe that my audience is going to take a lot of gems from this episode because y'all are doing relationship right. They always hear me talk about the difference between a husband and a wife. You hear husband and wife oftentimes, but I like to say purpose partners. And so you guys are the epitome of what I call purpose partners. Y'all are serving purpose together, and the legacy that y'all live, the legacy that y'all are going to leave is, not going to be a legacy left from through your loins or whatnot, but it's going to be a legacy that's going to transform the world. Because even when Tom, he was telling me about this video game concept we was talking about, I was like, wow, this is some next level stuff. And so it's going to be very impactful. And so keep doing what y'all doing. Hey, y'all get up for my people. The Billions, y'all.
Stay tuned to the end for a letter to my future wifey.
Been writing these love letters to you.
Ladarian, thrusted suddenly into Child Protective Services in 2015. My nephew, Black, a boy. The likelihood of being adopted outside of kinship, slim to none. Armani, 16 years old, Black, a boy, with 5 years in the foster care system before I even knew his name. The likelihood of ever being adopted, yep, you guessed it, slim to none. While Ladarian and Armani were trying to survive and barely thrive in an overpopulated and underfunded foster care system, I was living my own life, doing well professionally. Having been a single father with a daughter who at that point was doing well in college, it was my time to live my life, right? Wrong. I felt unsettled, tireless, agitated. There are just too many of our Black children stuck in ambiguity and in the limbo of the foster care system. In 2017, I legally adopted my nephew, Ladarian. Fast forward to 2019, I had no ties to this other young king, but I felt God instructed me to adopt him also, and I obeyed. Starting over with parenting should have been enough, right? Working with various foster care and adoption agencies to help bring awareness to the countless young Black kings in the foster care system should have decreased my agitation, right? Joining the board of directors of Advantage Adoption, an organization that helps find permanent adoptive homes for children in foster care, should have led to some type of resolve, right? No, not at all. None of it felt like I had done enough. I now realize that every one of those experiences was laying the fundamental foundation for my life's mission, Kingdom Royale. Kingdom Royale will be a luxury, state-of-the-art home for foster boys. Our first location will be in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. We will utilize the whole person approach that instills identity, empowers them to advocate for themselves, and enlightens them regarding new perspectives and limitless options that they thought were impossible. Though the young kings will attend the local public schools that are in proximity to Kingdom Royale, our at-home curriculum will broaden their worldview through participating in the arts, attending various cultural events, learning about and engaging in multifaceted discussions about current events and even relevant historical context, introducing them to gardening and landscaping and even caring for our animals on our farm and on-site stables. We just launched our Startup Capital campaign with the goal of raising $2.8 million. Now, why $2.8 million? Well, in 2017, I created a web series in which I performed random acts of kindness for targeting the homeless community. One of the most notable successes was that one of the videos went viral, garnering 28 million views. However, one of my biggest regrets is that I didn't raise a single dollar to help in implementing a more sustainable plan for the homeless community. So throughout the years, with much remorse, I reflected on not maximizing that moment. I knew if at that time, just 10% of the viewers donated $1, we would have raised at least $2.8 million that could have really established long-term support for the homeless community, or at least started a long-term initiative to do so. This is my do-over. This is our new beginning. Together, we can attack this at the root by specifically helping our homeless Black boys who are already disproportionately represented in the American foster care system. I'm Laterras Whitfield. I've been nominated for 3 regional Emmys documenting my work with the homeless as well as my personal adoption journey. Despite those accolades, the greatest award for me is truly providing the infrastructure for a transformed life. Visit kingdomroyale.com for more details. Crown a king and make a donation today. Tom and Lisa, thank you so much for sharing your studio with me and your production team to allow me to shoot an episode of the Dear Future Wifey podcast. You have no idea how much value you added to this discussion. Tom, you're absolutely amazing. Lisa, I love the way y'all love each other. Y'all are doing an amazing job. Well, here's my favorite part of the podcast where I speak to my future wifey. Dear Future Wifey, I envision a future where transparency and vulnerability form the bedrock of our relationship, where honesty flows freely between us like a gentle stream, nourishing our connection and strengthening our bond with each passing day. I long for a partnership where we can lay bare our souls without fear of judgment or rejection, where we can share our deepest fears, wildest dreams, and most intimate thoughts without reservation. In this space of unadulterated transparency, I see us embracing each other's vulnerabilities, holding them close like precious treasures, and using them to deepen our understanding of one another. In this journey towards building a life of prosperity, I believe that our willingness to be open and honest with each other will be our greatest asset. We will communicate openly and authentically, knowing that our love is strong enough to weather any storm that may come our way. Together, we will create a legacy of prosperity, not just in terms of material wealth, but also in terms of emotional richness, spiritual fulfillment, and profound connection. Your future hubby.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Dear Future Wifey podcast. Remember, be lit, live intentionally and transparently, and don't stop loving.
Make sure to subscribe to our Dear Future Wifey YouTube channel. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher. We welcome your support. Simply share our podcast with your friends and family.